Today we're going to look at some assumptions that we've made about Jesus. For instance, did you know that Jesus was not a Christian? Does that send chills up your spine? Does that tend to anger you a little bit? Does it make you uneasy when you hear that Jesus was not a Christian? The fact is, by the very definition of Christian, Jesus Christ could not have been a Christian. A Christian is someone who follows Christ. So Jesus could have been no more a Christian than I could be a Kevian or a Bostorian. In order for Jesus Christ to have followed himself, been like a puppy chasing his tail. And although I'm sure that Jesus feels like he was chasing his tail sometimes, he certainly was not. What is your perception of Jesus? Today I want to find out how you view Jesus. Let's play a little game. I want everybody to close their eyes. I want you to get a picture of Jesus in your mind. How old is he? Has he always been that old? What does he look like? What color are his eyes? What color is his hair? His skin? Does your Jesus have a beard? What's his clothes look like? Is he clean? Is he bathed? Let's think of his demeanor. Is Jesus happy? Is he smiling? Is he burdened? Is he frustrated? Does Jesus look content? When he's sitting with the disciples, is he a preacher or is he a teacher? Is he emotionally involved with them? If a fight broke out among them, would he get involved? What would he do? You can open your eyes. Let's look at some other assumptions made about Jesus over the years. Some think that Jesus was just a good teacher. Well, in fact, Jesus was a good teacher. In fact, he was a great teacher. But that's not all Jesus was. While teaching seemed to be his passion, we must remember that Jesus was everything. Jesus was a healer. In Luke 14:10-15, you'll read how Jesus healed on the Sabbath. And he was called out by the synagogue ruler. And he and Jesus had a little tip over him healing on the Sabbath. Jesus was also a great preacher. Matthew 5, the Sermon on the Mount, the most famous sermon ever in history, where Jesus spoke out against murder and adultery, divorce, talked about giving to the needy. Without a doubt, the most famous sermon ever to be given in our history was given by Jesus. It was probably even more famous than my puppy sermon a few months ago. Jesus was a man of great passion. He was seen over and over again as he knelt down before his disciples and he washed their feet. Some say that Jesus was a pacifist. Now I know that Jesus was a peace-loving man, a man who taught us to turn the other cheek, a man who taught us not to throw stones. Jesus truly picked love over hate, peace over war. But you could hardly call this man a pacifist. This is a man who walked into a temple and flipped over the tables of the tax collectors. This is a man that stood up against the Roman Empire. This is a man who taught that Caesar was not the Most High. This is a man who taught that there was only one God and Caesar was not him. You could hardly find the assumption that Jesus Christ was a pacifist. Some think that Jesus was a Republican. Just by the very definition of the word Republican, you know that Jesus could not have been a Republican. By definition, a Republican is a supporter of the Republic as government, or somebody that believes that the best government is one which supreme power is vested in the electorate. It's not Jesus. Jesus was never a political leader. even the Jews were a bit taken aback. His only political alliance was to God and not to government. If he were walking amongst us today, I doubt that Jesus would be a Democrat or a Republican. Something like if Jesus walked around and just said, hey, do what's right. I can think of many instances where Jesus was tested into doing what was right and did the opposite. The time that the prostitute was brought before Jesus, and they asked Jesus if she should be stoned, because by law, the right thing to do was to stone her. And Jesus turned it around on them and told them to let those without sin be the one to cast a stone. And nobody could stone her. So many times we're given false teachings about Jesus, about God, about religion. Inside the media, there's been false teaching after false teaching after false teaching. If you all ever viewed the movie Jesus Christ Superstar, you probably walked away thinking Jesus Christ was a rock star. If you ever watched The Last Temptation of Christ, he was an adulterer. If you ever watched the movie Jesus of Nazareth, you kind of had the idea that he was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, surfer-looking dude from Southern California. And there's an old movie called The King of Kings where Jesus walked around with a constant glow around him. Even my all-time favorite movie, Jesus talked in Latin. And I don't know where Mel got the idea that Jesus ever spoke in Latin. Jesus was a carpenter and he was a Jew. And being a Jew, I suspect that he spoke Hebrew, though being a carpenter, he might have spoke some hillbilly slang as well. I don't know how the two worked together. I wasn't there. Maybe it was called Hillbrew. But I know that he didn't speak Latin. So who is Jesus? Who is the real Jesus? How do we determine who Jesus is? It's so easy to get caught up in media and what we're told. I have a film clip that I want you to watch. I also want to warn you that the clip is somewhat graphic. It does have some scenes out of the Passion of Christ in it. But it's a clip of Mary thinking back to who Jesus was as she watched her son being crucified. I want you to watch this clip right now.